Welcome back to Back Points, the podcast where top wrestlers reveal their secrets. I'm here today with my friend and co-host Buddy Lee, Olympian and jump rope entrepreneur, and we're talking to Tim Foley, who has an awesome wrestling journey that took him from the state finals in Virginia to becoming the second winningest wrestler in UVA history, as well as a D1 All-American. And he tells us about the highs and lows of his wrestling experience. Before we start, I want to give a plug for our sponsor, Buddy Lee Jump Ropes. These are awesome ropes, and you can save 20% on any order by using the discount code BACKPOINTS20 when you make a purchase. So support the show and buy a jump rope with this promo code, BACKPOINTS20. Also, please rate and review the podcast and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and share this show with a wrestler. Now, let's get rolling with today's episode with Tim Foley.
He taught me to get up when I didn't want to get up, when I wanted to quit.
I had high goals, man. I've always had high goals.
And so when I won it, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, you guys are right.
It's not the thrill of winning. It's the joy of having that personal goal and being able to achieve that and walk off the mat with your head held high and with your hand up.
That just fueled my fire. And I was in every state championship match from there on until I graduated.
That was when I really started doing the kind of wrestling that I was capable of.
Anybody that steps in the ring and just decides to commit the entire time is a state champion in my book.
Welcome back to Back Points, the podcast where top wrestlers reveal their secrets. Here today with Tim Foley, who was an All-American for UVA and graduated as the second winningest wrestler in UVA history. He was a two-time ACC champ, and before that, he was second in the state for Brook Point High School in Virginia. Yes. Here today with my friend and co-host Buddy Lee, Olympic champion and jump rope entrepreneur. If you don't have a jump rope, then I don't know what's wrong with you, but go out and get one. Get one of his jump ropes, best in the world. So, Tim Foley, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's nice to be on.
Welcome, brother. Welcome. Welcome to the brotherhood.
Nice to join such great company. Hey, yeah, that's fun. It's funny you brought up Brook Point. It's been a while. You know, since I left high school, that area, Stafford County, Virginia, had a great program in Colonial Forge. And then I think my high school, there's like 9 high school divisions now in Virginia, but the one that my Brook Point is, they've won the state championship like 4 or 5 times. But when I was there, we had just, we were just like a podunk little town. So it's been fun to see them do well since.
Did they? What did a new? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, was that AAA, AA? What?
At the time, it was AAA. Mm-hmm. It was AAA school,
wow.
1,300 students or something like that. And then, which I think was right, because it was single, double, triple, so it was the top division. And then, I think they're still like whatever. I have no idea. They're a big school though, so I don't know if they're the very, very biggest or if they're just below that. But
yeah. Well, now because there's so many, it's difficult to say. You would have been able to say they would definitely be in the biggest division years ago, but now that there's 6 divisions in the public school system, and the difference between 4A, 5A, 6A, it's could be 50 students. So it's hard to say. It could be, Great Bridge, for instance, they are 4A, I think. And they're a pretty big school.
Huh.
Anyway. What's the highest? 6A?
6A is the biggest, yeah.
Really? That's crazy, man. They've really kind of destroyed things.
It's a little too big. I mean, they really should. Now, I have heard that they're going to go back to the old 3A system. So it makes a lot more sense, because it's actually hard to even put on district tournaments because it's spread so thin. Yeah. So it maybe it makes sense for other sports, but for wrestling, I think there's a fair amount of consensus that it's too many divisions.
Yeah, I think for football and basketball, it was a good moneymaker, to have more games. But like you said, for the sports where that's not necessarily the top concern, it's probably more competitive to have a fewer number of schools.
Yeah.
Well, they better start addressing this sport, because I tell you what, man has always, had a lot of aggression and anger, and they need something to channel this aggression and anger. They got to have some type of sport to channel that aggression in. Wrestling is a great sport for that.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would be if I didn't have wrestling. It would be some type of gang member or something, you know.
It really channels a lot, you know, our energies in a pretty amazing way. So, and that's a good segue here into Tim, your wrestling journey. So how did you start out in wrestling? How old were you and when did you start?
I didn't join a team until I was 14. We were in the middle. My father's a Marine, so we were.
Hoorah! Hoorah!
Yeah, like that. So we had moved around. There was no youth wrestling in Stafford when I was younger, and then we went from there to camp. He was stationed at Camp Pendleton when I was in middle school, and there was no programs for middle school. There was like a program down the street, but I wasn't old enough or something. So I'd ride my bike, and I would do like the conditioning in the back when they did the conditioning. But I did that like a couple times. It wasn't until I moved to Virginia. I didn't start wrestling until November of, I don't know, like 94. So I was like, yeah, I was older. I was like 14. And then in high school, whatever, I was terrible. I think I won one match as a freshman. I was like 500 if you included buys as a sophomore.
That sounds like a real champion to me. The champion does not quit, man. He falls, but he never gives up.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, Tim. I mean, when you think about the fact that, yeah, I understand about military families moving around and stuff, it's very hard for kids to be committed to anything. You know, being in the military and you know, did you ever think that wrestling would be the sport for you? I mean, what sport did you think that you were going to be, you know, great at, or that you know?
So I went to high school. I was thinking I was 5'3" or something like that, or 4 when I was a freshman.
Sounds like a basketball player to me.
That's exactly what I thought I was going to be for quite a long time. No, I mean, I didn't really know. I mean, we didn't, you know, I think the access to information and what you can and cannot be is significantly increased, you know, since 2005 or 2006 with YouTube and now with the smartphones. Kids can dream to be all these different things, but at the time just wasn't something that was really considered. It wasn't like we're thinking about being a professional athlete or something like that. You know, we just enjoyed the sports that we played for some benefit, I'm sure. And for some, there's probably some issues with that as well, but I don't know. I never really thought about it. Not until I made the goal to, you know, be a state champion my senior year, which Matt Gallagher ruined. But I made that when I made that decision, and then I saw, oh, well, there's a couple colleges that would be interested in having like good grades, good SATs. And so they're like, oh yeah, it'd be great. Why don't you come on to, that's when I started thinking like, oh, all right, maybe there's something more to this, you know, maybe this is something I can do. I had a brother who played Division III football. So I'd seen like, you know, what college athletics in general could look like. But yeah, that was the first time. I mean, I guess I really did think I was going to be a basketball player until I was like,
that's all we see, man.
I was looking up, and I was like, maybe not going to happen.
Yeah, this is all we see. I mean, I made that transition from junior high to high school, and I was on a basketball team in the 8th grade. We were 12-0, won the sections or whatever it was, and then went to high school, got injured with a layup, and I was always, you know, kicking guys' butts. And then I went up for a layup in the basketball practice, got injured, hated the coach. And then one of the star wrestlers invited me to try out for the team as a 9th grader. And I never looked back after that. And so just, you know, you may have had the introduction to the sport where you got beat up on, or you got, schooled. And so what happened after that first year? You know, what went through your mind in terms of how did you recommit? What made you decide to say, hey, I'm going to put everything into this to be the best I can be?
I had my friend at the time. My friend at the time is still my best friend, but was a guy named Jeff Braden, and he was on the team, and he had a little bit more success. I think he kind of like made it to regionals or something. And I just super competitive. So I was like, I'm not going to let my friend be better than me at this. And also just an incredible amount of self-delusion, like just an incredible amount of self-delusion. I think my freshman year, the thing that I walked away with was the one match I did win was against the kid who beat me earlier in the year. So then I was like, well, I obviously got better. So obviously I can be a state champion. Like that was the kind of connection that I made, was like, well, who cares? You know, I had more takedowns than gotten taken down this year. I got better by the end of the year. And then I was let's go to camp and see what happens. And I had a little bit of success at camp, and I would take somebody down in practice who had, been more successful and been like, well, if I can take him down, obviously I can do the next thing. So it was just an incredibly large, probably for lack of a better term, ego at a young age, being like, I might be terrible, but if I can do this, then I'm certain there's a pathway forward. And that was, I think, what basically drove me. That, and just, my parents weren't going to let me come home, from school during the, after school. So it was like, you're going to wrestle, so you might as well be good at it. Don't complain. So,
especially having a dad as a U.S. Marine. Yes.
Yeah.
You are.
And I have 4 brothers, so there's not like, there wasn't a lot of time to concentrate on my, on my physical failings or my emotional needs all the time. So it's kind of just like, get in line, let's just go on.
Tough it out. Tough it out.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make a comment on something. I think, I think he brings up a great point. How do you measure success? And at a very young age, this guy was able to say, hey, I got more takedowns this time, and they didn't take me down as many times as last time. I did really good against this guy. And I mean, just imagine if more people started thinking like that.
That's right.
How they could really, learn the process of how to prepare and get a little better each day.
That's
and
right.
At a very young age, you already knew this. It wasn't like you were delusional. I think you were realistic. You measured success in a different way. And I just think I like to applaud you for that.
I would too. It reminds me of the episode we did with Wade Chalice. He took over a program at one point where nobody had ever wrestled. It was completely, inexperienced. And so he said to me that he would say to his kids, oh, you've won if you don't get pinned in, if you go twice as long without getting pinned. And then he would really, celebrate that. And he'd be, somebody would go out there, they'd get pinned, and he'd be celebrating. He'd be like, yeah, of course, you just won. You lasted twice as long. He would then measure the amount of time that the whole team would go without getting pinned. And, and so he would measure these, he would find success, and he would then show it to them. He'd record it, and he'd put it back on them. And it worked. It made these guys into good wrestlers, over time. And it really made me feel like, that's something that a coach can do. So did that come from you, Tim, where you were keeping track of how many takedowns you got versus how many times you were taken down? Or did your coach lead you on that?
Definitely not my coach. I think it's probably me just personally figuring that out. My parents are all both really sort of positive people. Like they don't really give a lot of advice. They just are like, oh, that's great. You should continue, just do your best and don't worry about it. Like, hey, look. And they were always kind of the silver lining people. So I think that for me, that was always like, my mom saying something like, oh, that was the kid that you lost to earlier in the year. It's like, it was the kid that I lost to earlier. That kind of thing. So
that's important.
Activity in the moment. But I think it's interesting here is you look today, and I see it sometimes. I started doing running because I do a lot of jiu-jitsu, but because of COVID, I've been doing a lot of running. And I'm not a runner. Like, just not. That's not probably what I would have been suited for in ancient combat. I don't think I would have been delivering the mail. But I enjoy it. Like, I really, really enjoy it. There's certain things that are really hard to do. But then I'll go on and I'll see like my friend who like I know I don't think of as being as in shape, like this guy definitely can't do jiu-jitsu or he can't wrestle. And he's like just blowing by me. And I think like seeing those numbers, it stresses me out because I'm like, oh man, like I'm only running like a 8-minute mile or whatever it is for this many miles. And this guy's crushing me. And I always have to remind myself, I almost do remind myself of wrestling because I'm like, it doesn't matter like what he's doing because he's maybe been doing this 20 years. He may be doing this 30 years. You know what I mean? But I do think that nowadays kids have a little bit more pressure on them because they do see they have so many more influences and people at different stages of success. And it seems like that's where they should be, but sometimes that's the end for that person, or that's close to the end of their journey or to their goal. And I think it's a little bit more stressful. I think one of the things I did benefit from was not having, social media or those external pressures. I could just live within my own You can live within your own head, your own system, your own set of friends and people that care about you. So I do worry sometimes about kids, like when they're starting out, especially in a sport as tough as wrestling, not having that early success. It can be difficult to persevere. On the same token, the kids who do persevere past that are probably even more mentally tough than the guys before who were able to, do it in a bubble.
Yeah.
Well, I look at things as a process. I mean, some people gain that mental toughness at an early age, and some people, they develop it later on. And that's the process of learning. That's why we come into schools as students, and you go into the sport of wrestling as a boy, and hopefully you transform into a young man, because you learn all those life skills. What is real commitment? What is focus? What is perseverance? What it means to really prepare. Take us to the sophomore, junior, and senior year. Take us through that journey. And I know you had to improve from the freshman year.
Yeah, sophomore year, I made it to the regionals. And then I was like, that's pretty cool. But I had a goal of making it. I think I had a goal of making it to states maybe as a sophomore. But then I placed 5th at regions, I think, which is like you had to wrestle a number of matches. I was like 3-3 at regionals. And I remember being like, okay, all right. Wasn't
Improvement.
great. It wasn't one match. I was 500 if you included some buys.
Yeah.
And so I was even sort of patting my own record in my own head, being like, well, that guy didn't wrestle, so technically is that a win? But I had started again, and I had found more success. And then my junior year, I think the big moment for me my junior year was I was wrestling this kid. I made the states. I had won districts. I won regionals. I think I won regionals. I can't remember. But then I got to states, and my first match I won. It was a pretty cool match. I had a great time. Second match was against a kid named, what was his name?
Back down to memory lane.
Steve Sakis. He was Steve Sakis, and he was the number one guy in the country, or definitely the state, like one of the top guys in the country. He was a total monster. It was definitely going to rip my head off. And he ended up dropping somebody on his head on the other mat and getting disqualified. So there was only first round, quarterfinal, semifinal, finals. So I had won my first round, or whatever that you want to call that. And then in the quarterfinals, I got a forfeit. Wow. So I won one match, and all of a sudden I was going to be top 6 at state. And I remember thinking, like, I really cannot lose out here, because if I lose out, then it was nothing. It's not, I didn't earn that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I wrestled this kid, Mike Agent, in the semifinals, and he had pinned me in 30 seconds or 15 or 20 seconds or something earlier in the year. And it was a 2-1 match. And I don't know. I remember thinking that I had the takedown at the end. Whatever, I didn't. But it was like neck and neck. I could have been me going to state finals. And then I dropped down, and I was, oh man, I'm not gonna, who knows if I lose this next match, then for 5th and 6th. I lost my next match to that kid Sakis. And then, but I didn't get majored. And then the next match was for 5th and 6th. And I won that match. And I remember thinking, okay, well, then I earned my place, because I'm at least better than the number 6 person. For me, that was the biggest moment of probably my wrestling career, because it was the first moment I was like, I placed at states, which is preposterous because I don't know how to wrestle. And I did it, it was circuitous, and I was gifted some things, but I was able to make it back at the end. So I think for me, that was the biggest thing. I'd also like to remind you that this all happened again when I went to college. So like when I went my freshman year of college, I won like 2 matches. It all
sounds like a repeat.
Yeah,
I've been here before. I know what to do here. I'm just going to stay patient. It's going to get better.
I've been here before. Yeah, this is a road that I've run before. So
yeah. I love the mindset, man, because you kind of remind me of one of those kind of California surf boys. They relax and let it pass. Just everything's going to work out very easy going and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure you're pretty much really focused on academics, and you probably didn't have so much confidence in your athletic ability in the beginning, but then you started gaining more confidence as you start winning. And so just tell us, as far as the mindset when you start winning on the mat, and how did that help you off the mat in academics? Did it do something mentally for you, or confidence wise?
I think I've consistently still I let me think how to say this. In high school, I surrounded myself with really good people, and like really, really good people, including my girlfriend at the time, like just really good people. They didn't party. They just studied. They did all these things. That really helped me. But
Yep.
I wasn't until like college. I didn't do well for a while in college in academics. And then at the end, it's one of those moments where a coach said something, and it was a coach. I think it was Jim Harshaw. It might have been Jim Harshaw, or it was Jim Stanek. But one of them said, "As you do one thing, you do all things." And I know that we've all heard that before, but at the time, it was like a blinding flash of the obvious to me. And I was like, if I'm not going to concentrate in school, if I'm not going to do better in school, then I'm not going to do well in wrestling, or as well as I can be. It has to be like a lifestyle, And again, This is like pre-guru. We don't have a lot of like internet at this time. It's like 2002, 2003. And I remember that connection being made for me. And it was a connection I naturally had in high school that I didn't consider. But then in college, I got away from it until the very end. So anyway, the point is, it did help me stay focused in high school. Obviously also your diet and your exercise, and you're just too tired. Just too tired.
Man. You got to be focused. It's nice to have people with the same mindset. Well, what do you say about that? What you got a question?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm curious though, we've talked a little bit about coaching, and you went to camps. Like so did you have strong coaching in high school, or who did you really learn from as you were wrestling early on?
I didn't do any freestyle Greco. So I just did November to February, or March, February wrestling. That was it for the first 3 years. Did a 1 week summer camp at the University of Virginia each summer. And then I remember before my junior year, I did a second 1 week camp with Jody Strittmatter. Was it Jody Strittmatter? No. It was who's the other Jody? Jody Saylor. He was an old school like Granby style wrestler from Great Bridge. I did a Jody Saylor Camp of Champs kind of thing, and it like was super helpful. It actually really worked out. And then the next year I doubled up and I went to a Navy camp with Charlie Branch was coaching, and I really liked Charlie. So I did a Navy camp with him and then a UBA camp, but that is like the extent of my wrestling. I didn't have a club team.
Okay.
Anything like that. We did extra workouts. It was that same kid, Jeff, and we would just go in. We'd go run 3 miles at the gym and then go in and wrestle at the high school in the morning before class, and then go to class and go to wrestling practice. But we didn't do any. There was no club. There was no preseason or postseason.
Yeah. So I actually thought that you had done more club stuff, because I was, and I might be wrong about this, but did you know my old teammate Pete Zaffros?
We lived together.
Oh, you did. So that was later, though. That was in
college.
When did you guys meet?
He had gone to the University of Chicago, and he transferred into Virginia.
I see.
My senior year, his junior year, something like that. And then when he moved in, a guy had left the team, so I was at that a roommate. It was perfect timing because he came in. At the same time. Mm-hmm.
I see.
He's such a nice guy. It's like the nicest person I know.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he's coaching. He's been youth coaching in Northern Virginia for I don't even know how long. Probably.
Oh, really? I bet he's really good at that.
Yeah, I think he is. He is. Yeah, I think he's been something like 15 years or so. He's been coaching. Maybe I've added a few years to him. I don't know. But it's a long time. So take us through your senior year in high school.
Dun 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 dun.
Oh no! I don't think I had much year besides getting pinned by Matt Gallagher in 37 seconds, which I'll get back to in a second. Whatever. The regular season kind of goes as planned. At my weight class, there wasn't as much competition, so I bumped up a few times to wrestle people like Jeremy Rankin and whoever else, and it was good. Like even losing was like losing. It didn't matter if I lost to him, right? Because
more confidence.
Yeah, exactly. I could beat up on the other guy or wrestle with a better kid. And then Oh my God, this is so good. So I told you I had like this girlfriend in high school, and she was great, and she's nice, and she's still lovely and great. And high school district finals, we were at our high school, Brookpoint, and we're hosting it. It's like, oh, this is what a cool way to go out, you know? So my grandparents came into town, her grandparents came into town, her parents, my parents, all of my brothers, and my even my other grandmother who lived in Florida at the time was up there. I think every person that I knew or was significant in my life was coming to celebrate the completion of this milestone of my career.
Wow. That's a lot of pressure, man.
I think we all know where this is going.
Wow.
So we were wrestling, and before he went to Colonial Forge, Bill Swink, who's this, I think you guys both know, and maybe listeners do as well, is like a very, very well-established coach. I think he's not coaching anymore. He does more leadership type of stuff. Always a really nice guy. He started off at a school called North Stafford for a few years, and he had been coaching at North Stafford, and they got really good. So in the finals, I'm wrestling this kid. He's like, I'm like 5'7" at the time, 145 pounds. And the guy I'm wrestling against, no joke, 6'2". And he's dyed his hair the school colors, which are like Carolina blue. So his hair is like, he looks like thing 1, thing 2. He's got this like spiky, like flowing bluish hair. And I go out there, and for some reason my legs are just broken. I don't know, couldn't move. I don't know if it was like performance anxiety because all these people were there. The lights are green. It's a single light above my head.
Yeah.
And I lose like 7-2 or something like that. I'm like devastated. I run outside into the cold, and I'm crying. And my coach comes out, and he's like, I don't know, man. This is like very like, Southern Virginia at the time. I was like, I think you just need to eat, like, maybe have a hamburger, just like chill out, really stressed out, And I was like, okay, all right, yeah, maybe. But I was devastated. Like I thought that like I really thought in my head that I wasn't gonna be able to wrestle in college. I thought that everybody was embarrassed. I thought I let everybody in my life down. I thought that the things that I accomplished the year before were just a joke, and I'm not that good. I mean, I was like I was so depressed. We were building an addition on our house at the time, my dad was a GC at the time, or he was coming out of the Marine Corps, did a lot of general contracting and stuff. But so we were building our own, my dad built my house, so we were also building the thing. I woke up in the morning, I went to the bathroom. It's like 6 in the morning because we had to like go work, and we were laying joist that day or whatever, floor joist. I open the door, I go into the bathroom, and on the mirror, my brothers had cut out the front page of the sports page. This is already 6 in the morning, and it says Foley loses, and it has me like, crying with this like 6'2" guy with blue hair in the background.
Wow.
My family mocked me mercilessly.
Oh my God.
I mean, so they mocked me. So I have 4 brothers. What do you expect them to do? They're not going to be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you don't feel. I'm so sorry you're not." Okay. Let's talk about
what brothers are for, man. To give you a hard time.
And immediately I was just like, "Oh, God. Now if I lose, I will never live it down." So I wrestled him the next week in the regional finals and beat him.
Wow.
Redeem myself, for whatever it was worth. I was like 5 hours away from Stafford. Nobody got to see that, but all my friends in high school got to see me lose, of course. And then in the state finals, of course, I lost to Gallagher, Matt Gallagher, in like 37 seconds. Oh, I know it's 37 seconds because what years? That was 1999. This is 2021. My brothers have been using the 37-second joke for 23 years. I'm not exaggerating. Just yesterday, I got a text message from one of my brothers. It was a photo of a car, and somebody had like emblazoned the number 37 on it. It was like, "Hey, T, look at this." It's once a week, I get somebody saying some reference to me getting pinned in the state finals. So it's great you made it to the state finals, but to them, it's all about like taking you down a level and keeping you modest and keeping you like, you're not that great, bud. We're very proud of you, but we're going to make fun of you. So that was the rest of my school story.
So let me ask you a question. Had you wrestled this the guy in finals before during regular season, or was that the first time you ever seen him?
That was the first time we'd ever wrestled. and someone had told me he did this. It was like a 3/4 Nelson from the front. Like if you got in on a leg, he would kind of overhook, push your head, and kind of whip you over.
Yeah, hip toast. Yeah.
It was like kind of like he kind of like hipped you over. It was a really strange move. I'm not so sure it's legal. I don't know.
You probably never seen it. If you've never seen it, then it's kind of hard to defend something that's, unfamiliar.
If you never felt it, right? Just ended up in a really strange position.
Yeah, Gallagher was. Yeah, Gallagher did a lot of things that were very unusual, and he really was known for that. And his dad, I think, was an Olympic alternate in Greco, maybe. He was either an Olympic alternate in Greco or in freestyle, and he really did. Kind of pride himself, I know, on doing things very differently.
Yeah, unorthodox moves.
He was you had him on the podcast. He was a rollerblader. Did like X Games rollerblading.
Yeah, that's extreme. That's extreme stuff. The guys that take risk.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? Do you feel that maybe if that match had gone on for the entire duration, you would have done better, or you think you would have gotten you in something else unorthodox? Because
something else.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, like I don't think I could match up with him at that point. But as these things happen, he took a year off to do the X Games, and then I was at Virginia, and then the coach asked me to host him on his recruiting trip. So he was recruiting him for the same weight class I was in, knowing he had beat me in the state finals and was making me host him. And I was like, read the room, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Not a great idea.
That worked out.
It was actually a fun trip. I think he ended up like staying out late and partying or whatever. But when he actually ended up coming to school there, and then we wrestled, I think 3 times. I beat him 3 times. And then, yeah, that was fine. I mean, He was always a really nice guy, a lot of fun. Yeah.
So what was that a big motivating factor though? I mean, getting some revenge on your state finals match, or were you?
I know that the first time we wrestled, it was in the back of my mind, but not, at that point it was, you're in progression, and I knew that there was things that he just probably wouldn't stop. And to be fair, I think also he wasn't super committed at the time. Like he just wanted to do other things. Like college is a really awesome time for everyone. And I think that for him, it just was like, wrestling had taken its course. So, I don't think I got anywhere close to what would have been the best of him if he had been more focused. Yeah, I remember being nervous pretty much until the first takedown. You know how that happens? I know, both of you guys probably realize this, but like when you wrestle somebody, you be super nervous, and then you put your hands on him and you're like, I think I'm gonna be okay. And then you get the first takedown, you're like, oh yeah, this is only gonna go one way. I remember that feeling. But yeah.
Yeah. See, if you had me as a coach, you would have never had that feeling in the first minute, because I trained like the first minute was the finals of a national championship. So every time when I went on the mat, I felt like I'm going to get the first takedown, second takedown, and the third, just to put in this guy's mind that he doesn't have a chance to beat me and stuff. I think you should be applauded. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, buddy, was that your idea? Or did you have a coach who told you to think about that?
No, as I was saying in my episode, I was fighting to change my life. I was fighting to get a scholarship to college. I knew I came from a home where I was one kid of 6, and I was raised just by a mother. So I had to get to college and had to do it on a scholarship. So when I went on the mat, I saw the opponent as being in my way from getting a scholarship. So, so I went after him just like that. And then basically how I trained to do these extra things that help me mentally to be tough. But, just thinking about your mindset, Tim, I just think you've come a long ways, because I mean, you have this mindset that a lot of kids can relate to. It's like, okay, I'm going to do the sport and I'm going to check it out, but not sure if I'm going to be really good at it. And then along the way in this process, you started discovering, what was a win for you, and you didn't care about what your parents said or your brothers. I mean, the fact that you knew yourself and you was comfortable with yourself and could lose and still persevere. I mean, that's why kids end up, committing suicide, because they have poor self-images. So I think it's, just as a high schooler, to have this positive self-image of yourself, even though you thought that you was like overdoing it, I just thought it was healthy, that you put in your mind that, I could go this far, but even if you strive to go that far, you still came a little shorter. But in my eyes, that's called a champion, because you never know how great you're going to be unless you can put 100% behind it. And then when you did those extra things to go to those wrestling camps, to get that extra knowledge about wrestling, imagine if you did that all 4 years, where you would be.
Right.
And so I like the mindset, because you never know. Everybody thinks a wrestler has the same mindset, but to hear your mindset is very, very interesting, because I kind of see you as an academic guy, and I think maybe when you got to UVA, you were so focused on high school, you probably partied a little bit, and that's why you got a little behind.
I didn't party at all in high school, so when I got to college, I was like, I like this. But our team, and I appreciate you saying that, it's very kind. Our team was, we were pretty good. We were pretty dry from like October to March. It's just, I think those shoulder months that things got a little bit dicey. But again, I think also, we didn't have a lot of accountability inside the team regarding grades. I think even from a leadership perspective, I really love my college coach. But, one thing I think feedback I would have is we needed more stringent oversight, because I think we could have all done a little bit better. And I think it would have helped our wrestling as well if we had all, it said everybody needs to have a 3.5. I think people would have found a way to make it happen, because their friends were making it happen and that kind of thing. But yeah, I was fortunate to have a good support system. So, I think there was a mixture, there was a melange of inputs that I would get, and I could choose the ones that I liked.
So you were one of the few Virginia boys to become an All-American in college at a D1 school. So can you talk a little bit about that progression? You've said how, you did have a mentality shift at one point in college, but was that what how did your journey go in terms of, developing the skills necessary to be an All-American?
Skill wise, what would typically happen is I would find something that I liked watching someone wrestle, and then I would just do it. I would just wear it out. You know what I mean? I'm not really a one-trick pony, but I think there's things I do well and there's things I didn't do well, and I probably needed to work on the things I didn't do well more in retrospect. But I think I learned that a great equalizer for me was I tended to be, not always, but I tended to be more athletic than people I was wrestling. So then if I could get them into a situation where they felt like in a scramble type of situation and get away from their strengths, which is just like just being a hoss and seeing who can do more single leg takedowns, I felt like I was in a much better position. And then I remember I watched Jesse Jansen wrestle. Pretty much the biggest change for me was watching Jesse wrestle he was a freshman. I was a junior. I watched him wrestle at the Las Vegas Invitational. And I remember watching him. I think we were the same weight class. He might have been just lighter. He might have been 49. But I watched him. I went to all his mats and watched him wrestle. And he was doing, a lot of people think it's something we've always done, but it's not. But Jesse really brought back that crab ride and was tilting people with a wrist and half and kind of sitting in a crab and doing all those different adaptations. And so it was exactly. And putting in a short leg and all that type of stuff. And so once I saw that, I was like, oh, well, I can do that. So then I would just ride people mercilessly and just stay on top of them I was getting 5 minutes of riding time and big scores. And I think that naturally, when that starts happening, you feel more dominant, in yourself. So then I got a couple of can't miss takedowns that were low risk takedowns, as opposed to shooting straight doubles with my head down or something. I was shooting shots that I felt could go well. And so stylistically, that's sort of what impacted me. And then a roll through tilt, being good on top, some funk, it was pretty standard at that point. I'd lose matches. I would lose matches when I was well scouted, but same thing, sophomore year, or what ended up being my sophomore year, did really well, went to the nationals 2-2, won conference, and then had a letdown my junior year. That's not really true. I thought it was my senior year, because if you want a side quest real quick about how horrific college can be, I had been injured my first 2 years. Matt Gallagher injured me, actually. I got caught in a mat, and he was going for like a trip in practice, and it just basically shattered my ankle or whatever. And so I was done for the year, and the coach had never applied for my red shirt. So then when I had a disappointing fourth year in school, which is my senior year. I should have had one more year of eligibility because I didn't wrestle my first year. It was basically my second year of wrestling. And so they went and applied for a red shirt, and I didn't hear back. This is a process that should typically, knowing what I know now, should take 6 to 8 weeks. And it was like 7 months later, and they were like, "Oh, we haven't heard about your red shirt yet." And I'm not making this up. Somebody in the compliance office, there was only one person in the compliance office at the time who was supposed to file the paperwork, just never did it.
Wow.
And he came back one day and told the coaches, "Oh, he didn't get his red shirt." We'd already started my 5th season. They told me I didn't get it. So I was into my 5th season. I'm like running stairs. I'm like super nervous all the time. It's just like late September. Comes and tells the coaches I didn't get it. So they granted me a scholarship for my 5th year pending this, with the outcome of this compliance.
Yes,
right. Which in retrospect was cool, because that was generous, I guess, because they didn't know if it was going to happen. But then he tells me we don't get it. My dad calls up the NCAA and was like, "Hey, can I just get a copy of the paperwork? Because I want to know why he didn't get it. Like, I'm looking at your rules. It makes sense why he didn't get it." And they send back and they're like, "Tim Foley, who are you talking about?" My dad was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Yo, there's no case here."
Wow.
My dad called Craig Littlepage, who's like this legendary AD now. Like, he's the most amazing athletic director in the world. He's since retired, and my dad's like, "I'm going to be there at like 7 a.m. And my dad drove down and just like sitting outside of his office. So anyway, he gets everything straightened away. They file the paperwork, and I still don't get it, because in the year that I was applying for it, there was a snowstorm, and it like shifted the calendar. And there's like some like delicate language about when you're competing.
Really?
It really got. So now it's like mid-October. I'm being told season is just about to start. I'm being told that I didn't get my red shirt, so I don't have any competition. So we filed a lawsuit against the NCAA.
Heck yeah.
To say that, like, why am I getting my red shirt denied because there was a snowstorm in 2001 against Lehigh? Like, shouldn't an act of God be something that
that's right
shouldn't preclude me from competing? And before it got adjudicated or whatever, it ended up being they came back and agreed, and they since changed the rules. So that's not part of the rule anymore. It's scheduled competitions.
I see.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to go to court. So they were like, okay.
Well, I think they also had the student in mind, right? And they were saying like, all right, then this is what happened. And then the compliance guy got fired, and so on and so forth, whatever. My mental health probably has been better. But that was the start of my year. And then I went out and I competed, and the first thing I did was like tear my knee and have to take like a month off. So my senior year, when it came down to it, it was like, it was a mess, like just never was really healthy. And then when I did get to the end of the year, that's when things started turning, not end of the year, but like in second half of the season, I hit my groove, and I saw that I had improved a lot. And I also should mention, I think, Buddy, you know him, but Joe C was our coach. Joe C.
Oh, yeah. Amazing Joe C. Yeah.
Who recently passed away. And he came into the program. And so he was there my 5th year. So he was helping me through a lot of this stuff. He's a good motivator. Like, he knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? And showing me some different moves. And I remember, I think I pinned 4 people in 4 years. I pinned 14 my senior year based on the stuff that he was showing me. Yeah, he was very, very effective coach. And I owe a lot of my success my senior year to his influence.
Wow. I think you're just starting. I mean, people don't reach their potential in college. It's what they do after college. And I think you're probably one of those guys that needed to continue on the mat. Did you pursue a wrestling career?
I'm 40. You think it's time for me to go for it?
Never too old, man. Tom Brady proved that, what is he, 43? What was it, 43? Age is just a number.
It is. But
Yeah,
if you've seen
always
David
just-
Taylor, big boy. It's a big-
So how's
Yeah,
your
he-
body now? How's your body, and since your post wrestling days, how's your body?
So I didn't do any much. I stayed in wrestling on the mats for a few years. I think I tried to do like a Sun-Kissed Kid. I was like doing like was that the Schultz, did like one or two of those. But I didn't know enough freestyle. I mean, I double legged Donnie Pritzloff once at the NYAC for 3, which now would be 4 points. That was probably the highlight of my career. I mean, I beat some like Canadians or something, but it was like 1 year, and then I just got into college coaching. So I stayed off the mats. That was 2008, and then I started doing jiu-jitsu in 2011, and I did off and on for the first 2 or 3 years, and then pre-COVID, I was on the mats, very consistently for 3 years. No big injuries, mostly just like little stuff, like you tweak your neck, your shoulder, your knee, that kind of thing. But yeah.
I'm gonna ask a question. Do you feel that, with these things happening in your career, do you feel like you never reached your potential? Do you have in the back of your mind, I wish I shoulda, coulda, woulda? Do you have any regrets?
I don't have like any firm regrets, but I definitely believe I didn't reach my potential. But that's only because I can look back now and say, well, if you had gone and learned freestyle in high school and gone to camps and spent your spring where I was cutting lawns, and I had a lawn care business or whatever. But like, instead of doing that, if I had focused on wrestling, maybe I would have gone, to a little bit better, whatever. And then I also think to myself, well, if I had known when I started college coaching and recruiting kids, if I'd known the process to which you get into school through wrestling, I would have been able to go back and be like, all right, we'll focus on this grades, or focus on making relationship connections with these coaches who are at these Ivy League schools or whatever. So I think you have those regrets, like if you could rewind things. But I think like all of us, you get to a point where you're like, I like where I'm at, and I don't know all the reasons that I'm here, but I know that I like this place. So I don't really regret any of the other stuff.
So what are you up to at the moment?
I am the director of media operations for United World Wrestling, the international federation for the sport of wrestling.
Very cool.
So
Great.
I went to journalism school at Columbia University, and then worked independently as a journalist from 2008 to 2012, 2009, 2012, 13. And then in 2013, in 2013, when wrestling got kicked out of the Olympics, I volunteered my time initially to helping them improve their media operations, basically. Like, there was nobody covering the events. If there was the African championships, nobody was there. If there was the Asian championships, we had no photos, no stories, no videos, no streaming, no social media.
Yeah.
5,000 fans on Facebook, no Twitter. Obviously, I don't think Instagram was around yet, but there was nothing in place. So in 2013, I left my girlfriend in the middle of the night and hopped on a plane and flew to India to go. It wasn't in the middle of the night. It was like 5 a.m. And flew to India and showed up. And then the president now, Nana Lalovich, was just been named president of the organization. And I was like, introduced myself, and I was like, hey, I'm here to do this stuff. And for whatever reason, he believed in what I was trying to achieve and supported it. And I flew from India, weirdly had a layover in Thailand, but then went to Chad, Africa, for the African championships. And then it was off to the races. And I spent the next 18 months on the road, I think I spent 350 of 365 days in 2013, something like that, on the road.
Amazing.
And then now we have a great staff of probably like 8 people, and we cover events all over, not including freelancers. And then we cover 35 to 40 events a year pre-COVID, and create documentaries. All of our social media packaging, we have almost 2 million followers on social media. We're ranked amongst the international federations. We're ranked very well in all categories. We're with our organic reach and all the things that sort of truly matter. And that's going up against like basketball, soccer, rugby, weirdly, table tennis. So yeah, that's what I'm up to. So I spend a lot of time managing that.
So that's why you went through all that stuff in wrestling, just to get to where you are today. Using all that experience.
International wrestling later in life, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Master.
And, you know, that's really amazing, man. Congratulations. You know,
That's
director, and that's 2 million followers. So what's are you covering all the wrestling that's going on throughout the world? You guys?
Yes, we're the Association for Olympic Wrestling, right? So we, I was at the 2016 Olympics. I mean, when there's a rule change, it's coming from us. When it comes to integration with the Olympics, it's us.
Wow.
Licensing for all freestyle, Greco, women's wrestling, also different associated styles like beach wrestling and those types of things. So we spend a lot of time, money, and resources, and the goal of the organization is to increase the growth and development of the sport. And we're doing that. I think we have a development department that's incredibly active, and they go to places all over the world, to set up camps and to set up training camps and to set up, full-time operations to ensure that we can, get more people involved in the sport of wrestling. And that also takes on, like, for example, like the biggest thing we've been working on over the last several years, and it's going to continue for the next 4 or 5 years, is the creation of more opportunities for women to have leadership roles, whether, in their silos that also can bleed into the organization at large. So we'll see more females being educated and given the opportunity to succeed as referees. And then they become, part of the referee commission, and then they become part.
That'd be great.
That's one of the things we're really working on.
Yeah.
And having, a larger involvement I almost said student athletes, of the athletes in different outcomes. So now they have a seat on the executive board or the bureau. So that's the mission of the organization, is to create more opportunities, through the sport.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Good job. Well done.
Yeah. So check it out. United World Wrestling, man.
We will be. Yeah, we will be.
Yeah, I've seen it. United Wrestling. Yeah, I've watched it.
Yeah, we'll link to it.
Good.
Yeah, we'll share it. So I think it's great. It sounds like great work that you're doing. We look forward to following more of it.
I appreciate that. We have a lot of guys who put a lot of time and effort into it, and really, really good team. So
yeah,
Tim, I want to ask you to give a message to the young wrestlers out there, striving for their greatness. Let's see. Don't answer. What kind of message? Sorry, what kind of message would you give to the wrestlers out there trying to be their best, and then making a transition from the mat into real life? Whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall the most powerful thing I've taken away, and I think something that's really helped me. I'm not always this way, but optimism. Like, at the end of the day, if you're optimistic about what you can become, you surround yourself with better people. If you're optimistic, you're going to surround yourself with optimistic people. You're not going to be around a bunch of naysayers. You're going to be around people who are going to build you up naturally. Like, yeah, you can do this. Of course you can do this, because they're optimistic about the way you look at life. And I think that, that doesn't mean I don't sometimes, like, when I'm stressed and I'm not a little mean or angry about things, I know that I can improve in those ways. But, I think from a young age, I think if I look back, that's the one thing that kind of threads it all through. I think I described it earlier as self-delusion, but optimism is a form of that, I guess, where you're just thinking, what's the best outcome and how can I get there? And don't be afraid to, physically suffer, I don't, it's something that I like to do sometimes, like get on a bike and just make myself just hurt. I think that's also a good thing, but it's not what wrestling should be about. I think wrestling is such a beautiful sport, and if you're involved in it, then staying optimistic and finding things that you enjoy about the sport. Don't let other people tell you that you need to have for lack of a better term, like an Iowa mindset. You can have the mindset that works for you. You can have a Cale Sanderson type of fun aspect, or you can have whatever mindset you feel, just stay optimistic and stay positive about your journey. And then, good things tend to happen to good people. Optimistic people.
It's interesting you should say that, because I was listening to Ben Askren the other day, and he says how he thinks that the Iowa mindset has kind of held the sport back for a while, because it was so focused, and is so focused in many ways, on just grinding it out, going through that pain, and really kind of taking that to an extreme level, and it made people focus less on being innovative and thinking about the technique. And and I think a lot of people never really thought about that. I mean, I think there's a lot to that.
I agree. I think there's a lot to it. The only caveat I would make is we would be definitely selling Tom brands short if we didn't notice the fact that he has looked around and said, what are some ways that I can improve? And Tom is very smart, a very, very smart person. And he is funny, and he gets it. He has, since like the Iowa mindset, I think, is mostly attached to like the Gable and to Zaleski years, and even probably early brands. But as you've seen, like their success this year, or the way that they're positioned, has a lot to do with the kind of culture that he's creating. And he's making it, I think he's adapting to the times. And look, they're not doing cartwheels or something in that practice. They're not having like the most joyous time. They work hard, but I think that he's created a positive feedback loop for them, knowing that if he didn't, there's other places for them to get that online, or they could pick up the phone and talk to their buddy from high school. It's like, oh, you don't need to take that. You can just, whatever. He's created a positive feedback loop in his program, which is obviously being very beneficial. So everything Ben said's true. I think I agree with myself as well about Iowa mindset, but I also think it's almost becoming an antiquated term.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that wrestling has changed, and I think it would be silly to say that Iowa hasn't changed or hasn't evolved and all that. And so I don't know exactly how the evolution has worked, but you look at the teams now. I mean, Iowa's amazing, and you wouldn't say that they are, not keeping up. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, no, it's been, and I think it's good for the sport as well. Penn State's been so dominant over the last several years. It's nice to see a little bit of, especially from then. I think if it was like, if Cornell was the number one team right now, it would be nice. It would be cool to see the change in the guard, but there's something about the Hatfields and McCoy, like that kind of tension, like the Kale Tom tension, which is really nice to, I don't know, as a fan of wrestling and story.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not bad to see it.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. This has been awesome to have you on. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything we didn't bring up that you want folks to know about?
Support your programs.
Yeah,
that kind of basic.
That's right.
You guys know that stuff. If you have the opportunity to give a little bit of time, money, or energy to your programs, do it. We can't take for granted that we're always going to have our favorite wrestling programs around.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? I mean, not to expand on that too much, but I mean, with COVID, a lot of, college programs are under tons of pressure. I mean, I think there are 3 that maybe are disappearing. I know Stanford has dropped.
Really?
Stanford, they're trying to save it, but I think it was announced that they were going to cut it. Now, there were a bunch of other sports that Stanford was also potentially going to cut, so it wasn't singling it out. But ODU also,
my school,
which you know about, and then I think there was a third, which it's not Fresno.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so all sports. I mean, wrestling at all levels really needs support, and
we got to save it.
Yeah, that college level, absolutely.
Well, Tim,
let's get ready for the Olympics, guys. It's going to be a fun one.
That's right.
Well, on behalf of Back Points and Buddy Lee Jump Ropes, we want to make sure you continue to skip in the right direction. So we're going to make sure you get one of my latest design Buddy Lee high performance jump ropes.
Hey, my office is just big enough for a jump rope. I'm ready. Let's do it.
You get the whole federation jumping in the right direction. So
it's funny you should say that, Tim. I just found out that I can jump rope too in my office, which is nice. I didn't I didn't think I could do it in the office. So
it's been very popular in these COVID times. But like you say, I mean, it's the most efficient exercise on the planet. 10 minutes of it is the same as 30 minutes of jogging. I don't know really the conversions for wrestling, but 10 minutes of jumping at a wrestler's pace, maybe 5 minutes of wrestling.
Yeah.
10 minutes of jumping.
We'll see.
Thanks for coming on, man, and come
Thanks
back to see us again. Yes.
Congratulations on the podcast, and keep up the good work.
Thanks so much.
Too.
Thanks for listening to Back Points today. If you want to support the show, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you find the show. Also, it helps us if you give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Feel free to also make a donation via Patreon at patreon.com/backpoints. Thanks, and see you next episode.